All right, we'll get started. My guest is Michael Rosenberg, who we know as Passenger. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing really well, man. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I've had the pleasure of meeting you when you performed in our live studio here in Portland. Gosh, maybe 18 months ago. Seems like a lifetime ago.
Doesn't it just? It was a different world back then, I think. Yeah.
What part of the world are you in right now?
I'm in Brighton, in the south of England, which is where I'm from.
And is that where you spent most of your time during the lockdown?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a great. You know what? It's in some ways quite similar to Portland. I think it's like it's kind of got that vibey, artsy, hipstery kind of thing going on.
So probably similar weather.
Very similar, yeah. Dreary and wet and grey. Yeah, we share a lot, I think. Yeah.
Did I read that you managed to put on a couple shows in the UAE?
Yeah, weirdly enough, we got offered these gigs in Dubai. So I jumped at the chance. You know, it'd been 9 or 10 months without any shows at all. And yeah, suddenly I did 2 shows in a day in Dubai. It was very surreal, but it also meant that I got a bit of sun and a bit of time on the beach as well. It was a fantastic decision, I have to say.
Yeah, Dubai is on my list of cities that I would love to visit. It just looks spectacular.
It's super cool, man. Yeah, it was great. And just lovely to play a gig again. You know,
sure.
Fantastic feeling to be on stage and to be playing songs and actually in front of human beings.
Yeah. Imagine that. Passenger's new album, Songs for the Drunk and Brokenhearted, is out now. How did you go about recording this album? Because it's not just you solo. You have a really good band behind you.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's a long story. We recorded a lot of it before all of this crazy COVID stuff happened, and we actually finished a version of the album back in early 2020, but I decided to hold it back just because it felt like such a shame to be throwing an album out into the universe without any kind of real way of helping it, you know. So yeah, it's a funny one because then I went on to write all of these other songs in lockdown, and we ended up going back to the record, adding some new ones, taking some old ones off, and all of it was kind of recorded in my home studio, and you know, it's a mix of getting the players there when we could, and then a lot of remote recording as well. So it was definitely not a straightforward situation, this record, but I actually think I think it's probably given it an extra depth because of that, because we had to, you know, really kind of figure out how to do this.
You know, I think no matter what you do for a job, whatever your career is, I think we've all had to learn how to do it differently over the past 12 months.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, and I think from a creative point of view, I think it's, you know, this is my 13th record, and I think that the worry is that you get quite comfortable with how you're doing it. You use the same band, you use the same studio, everything's, you know, kind of very comfortable, and of course that's lovely. But with this, you know, everything was tipped upside down, and we really had to kind of reinvent the wheel a lot of the time with what we were doing. And as I said, I think musically it's had a really positive effect, actually.
I read a recent interview with you, and you said, and as you mentioned, this is your 13th record. You never have felt like you've ever had writer's block. You always feel like you have another record in the wings waiting to go. Why do you think that is? Because so many people do suffer from writer's block.
It's a good question. I've always been very lucky with the amount that I write, and the ability to write anywhere. You know, I write a lot when I'm on tour, when I'm at home, when I'm on holiday. As long as I have my guitar with me, I'm kind of always writing. And I think the pressure's off as well if you work like that. If you're you know, you're releasing an album and you have another one written, you're never in that kind of quite sticky spot of feeling like, oh God, I really need to come up with an album and I was meant to do it like yesterday. I think that's when artists and writers can kind of come up with the wrong songs, because there's a pressure. There's a sort of time constraint on it, and of course you start to rush things. You start to kind of feel like you need to hurry up with it, which is never a good place to sort of approach creativity from, I think. So yeah, I'm very lucky with the amount that I write, and it's always allowed me that kind of luxury, really.
Let's talk about the lead track from the album, Sword from the Stone. Now, you wrote this song during the lockdown, right?
Yeah, that's right. It was one of the later editions. Yeah, I guess sort of over the summer.
And an acoustic version was released, and now there's a new version, which we're playing on 101.9 KINK. Ed Sheeran was involved in the remix, right?
He was, yeah. It's a funny story. I've been friends with Ed for many years, and he's been very kind to me over the years and sort of taken me around as his support act all over the world. And we've always kind of talked about working together, whether that's a co-write or a duet or something. And when I wrote Sword from the Stone, I sent it to him, this terrible little sort of phone recording that I made. And I think he phoned me after about 7 minutes. I think he listened to the song twice and phoned me and was like, man, there's something really special about this song. And in the end, we sort of came up with the idea that he would go away with his producer and create like an alternative version. And I love it, man. I love what he's done. I think he's kept the heart and soul of the song very much intact, but he's just kind of given it this big poppy, punchy world to live in. And yeah, he's Sheeranized it, which I think is no bad thing. Yeah.
Was it difficult to let go of what must feel like your little baby to put it in someone else's hands? What if you had hated it? Would you have been able to say,
yeah,
Sheeran, I hate it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're good enough friends for me I would have never have been so blunt, but I'm sure if I didn't like it, I could sort of subtly suggest changes. But I think Ed knows me so well and we understand each other musically so well that was never really a worry. I didn't ever think he would sort of, take it and do something dreadful with it. So that was cool. And it was just such an open process. He came up with something, he would send it over, we'd sort of make a few changes and send it back. And it was just a fun thing to do, man, really.
Mike, you've toured heavily over the past decade plus, and no matter how much you love it, it has to take a toll on you. Do you think in some way this forced break has reinvigorated you?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. To be honest, I don't think I would have ever have stopped. If it was down to me, I think I would have just kept on writing, recording, releasing, touring and repeating, So I think for my physical and mental health, in some ways, this has been probably quite a good thing. And it's also made me understand how much I love this and how much I miss it and how lucky I am to go around the world and play music to people who want to listen to it. God, that's incredible. And you can really lose sight of that when you're doing it every night, and it's tiring and it's weird, and there are downsides to living like that. But man, not having it just reminds me of how lucky I am to have it for the most part.
My last question, have you taken up any new hobbies or skills, learning new skills during the lockdown like so many people have?
I'm much better at ordering Deliveroo, which is great. I've got that on speed dial. I really have improved.
Same here.
It's funny, isn't it? Like, I think at the beginning of lockdown, everyone was kind of like, yeah, cool, I'm going to learn the clarinet and Latin, all of this kind of stuff. And I don't know about most people, but I've completely failed. And it became apparent to me that it was just like, you know what, this is just about sort of getting through this.
One day at a time is how I'm looking at it.
Totally. And like, the less pressure you can pile on yourself, the better, I think. And just try and be gentle with yourself and try and get through this crazy time. Yeah.
Here, Songs for the Drunk and Brokenhearted is out.